I'm Mike Bradner, and this is Capital Views, and we have with us Mike Navarre, who's the new Commissioner of Commerce and Economic Development and Community and Regional Affairs. But Mike has a very long background. He's an established veteran legislator. He's been mayor of the Kenai Borough twice. And Mike, you're in the catbird seat for development in this state, and rhetoric seems to be an impediment to where we need to get to.
Well, you're right, and it's something that one of the things I want to try to do is dial down a little bit of the rhetoric and focus on the overall economy as the reasons behind why we're having the debate on taxes and use of permanent fund earnings. And I think it's important because rhetoric in campaigns, which you're not going to stop because that's the nature of the beast, but after campaigns you have to pivot to governing, and that's you ought to dial down some on that rhetoric and focus on the ways that you can agree on what the goals are long term, and then put a structure in place that allows for not just the people who are in the legislature and in government, but also to bring the public along on the rationale behind that debate, why we're taking actions that we're taking. There's some real philosophical differences in some of the debates that are taking place on taxes on resources or resource development, on income taxes or even sales taxes, use of the permanent fund. Those are legitimate discussions to have, but the idea that government is bad and that all taxes are bad flies in the face really of the very institutions that make us great as a state and as a nation.
You have government because you have to have a fabric that provides services to the public, and you can't have services without having taxes. And of course that was the great division in the beginning of this country of Alexander Hamilton and the populists, and he saw the necessity of we have to have an economic regime.
Absolutely, and that allows for sort of economies of scale where everybody chips in a little bit, and there's efficiencies actually that are built into that type of a system where everybody pays and you have one entity who's providing the services rather than a disparity in a bunch of different groups who are providing the same type of service and duplication. And so we have to recognize why we have taxes in our country and in our state and in our communities, and it's to pay for the services that we really demand and want as part of quality of life. And we want good education, we want public safety, we want clean air and water, those types of things.
That's a familiar discussion on the local level.
It is.
I mean, the local public understands that the services to their doorstep are local, so you have to pay something for them.
And what's the difference? The difference is that at the local level, it's nonpartisan. You may have disagreements in philosophical areas, but it doesn't get up to the same rhetorical level that you sometimes get in a very partisan system. And a partisan system, fine. We're within that system. It's not going to change anytime soon. The thing is that we have to keep in mind that we ought not to be so intractable that after elections are over, instead of focusing on the next election, you focus on the opportunity to implement policy in that time frame between elections.
The difference is it's like the campaigns are never over.
Right.
And you really has to be a knock at the door, and it's time to do things.
And compromise is now a bad word, and it shouldn't be. Reaching across the aisle and agreeing on things and making compromise, it shouldn't be hard line on one side or the other. We have to reach compromise and consensus on what we need to do to make our state better and provide opportunities for our citizens.
And we've had the luxury of being able to survive on oil taxes, and that's unfamiliar to somebody from outside of the state. That what taxes do you pay? It comes out of holes in the ground.
Yeah, and our reluctance really to have a broad-based tax at the state level means that we continue to shift costs to the local level. And so I think last year a number of local communities, including the Kenai Peninsula Borough, was looking at raising local taxes in order to pay for some of the costs of the shifts and reductions from the state level to local level. So yeah, I think that we need to recognize if we want our state to be a great state, and we want opportunities to take advantage of economic development and provide services that go along with that economic development, we have to have a broad-based tax.
It's like you're sort of waiting for somebody to say, okay, enough talk. We got a great state. We have things we have to do, and we got to get to doing them.
Absolutely, and we're spending down our reserves over a fairly short period of time, and so really the downturn in oil prices was a catalyst. And at this point, we haven't galvanized, I guess, and come together around a long-term solution. Some of the debate's taken place, and some of it has been polarizing in that afraid of compromise, all taxes are bad. That type of narrative, I think, has to change in order for us to...
We inherit that from the federal level.
Absolutely.
The national debate, and we got to separate that from the local debate.
Yeah, there used to be more compromise. There used to be more working across the aisle. It wasn't a bad thing, and it's not a bad thing. It's what has to happen. There's no political philosophy that has all the answers. It's not Democrats or Republicans or independents. Everybody working together is what allows for us to sort of recognize differences of opinion and policy debates that can be civil and should be.
Mike, we're out of time already. It's nice to have you here, and good fortune in your new role.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This has been Capital Views, and I'm Mike Bradner.